Good evening, everybody. Our top stories tonight: the long-awaited, much anticipated, and long-delayed Inspector General's report turns out to be little more than a deep state cover-up. More than 500 pages detailing out-of-control political corruption and subversive anti-Trump activities. And then the Department of Justice watchdog concluded there was no bias at the Justice Department or FBI. We'll take up this fictional sham of an investigation with an all-star lineup of guests here tonight. Congressman Jim Jordan and Congressman Matt Gaetz join us, and legal analysts Greg Jarrett. Also tonight, Rhino Paul Ryan's political endgame becoming more obvious to those paying attention by the day. This latest draft of his DACA amnesty bill reads like a love letter to the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce, the Koch brothers, and Wall Street. It can mean only that the Speaker has sold out the Republican Party for good and will be running for president if he is not already. We'll talk about the disturbing prospect with the dean himself, political strategist Ed Rollins, and the fake news losing its collective mind. Today, turning the White House briefing room into a shameful spectacle of grandstanding and childish temper tantrums.
These people have nothing. They come to the border with nothing, and you throw children in cages. You're a parent. You're a parent of young children. Don't you have any empathy for what they go through?
You would think someone would be assigned to slap the hell out of somebody. We'll talk to our panel tonight about whether it's time to bar some of these so-called journalists from the White House briefing room permanently. Our top story tonight: the deep state circles its wagons and tries to cover up rampant corruption at the DOJ and the FBI with a sham Inspector General's report claiming to have no evidence of political bias in the handling of the Clinton email investigation and the relentless pursuit of President Trump over phony charges of Russia collusion. It is a remarkable document. And just hours after that report was released, FBI Director Christopher Wray held a news conference to continue the whitewash.
This report did not find any evidence of political bias or improper considerations actually impacting the investigation under review. We're going to train every single FBI employee, both new hires and veterans alike, on what went wrong, so these mistakes will never be repeated.
But it wasn't the rank and file making the mistakes, Mr. Director. It was you, your good friends and colleagues, whether their name is Mueller or Comey or Strzok or Page. Well, in spite of the coordinated effort to play down the most damaging details of that IG inspection and investigation, the report nevertheless reveals jaw-dropping misconduct at the Department of Justice. And Fox News Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge joins us tonight with much, much more. Catherine, I'd like to just start with a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'd just like to start with a question, if I may. What is your takeaway about what this report says about James Comey first?
Okay, so the bottom line with the former FBI director is that he was found to have been insubordinate when he made that very public statement about the findings of the FBI Clinton email investigation and that he was recommending against criminal charges. The Inspector General said that Comey took deliberate acts to keep his boss, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and her deputy, Sally Yates, in the dark about his public comments, where he also went outside the boundaries of his authority, and he made a decision that would typically and traditionally fall to the Justice Department. So insubordination is no small thing to associate with a former FBI director, and then also one who has written and spoken so publicly about these issues of leadership, Lou.
Yeah, it is small, though. It is so incredibly tiny compared to the evidence against James Comey and what the Inspector General chose to interpret. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, Catherine, can you hear me? We apparently have lost our link with Catherine Herridge. Joining us now to talk about the Comey insubordination and the blatant political bias that escaped at least the Inspector General in his conclusions. Congressman Jim Jordan, he serves as a member of the House Judiciary Committee and Oversight Committees. He's also the co-founder of the influential House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
First, your reaction to the conclusions here.
Yeah, Director Wray is just not accurate, because in the report itself it says we do not have confidence that Strzok's decision was free from bias. What are they referring to? They're referring to Peter Strzok at the end of the Clinton investigation saying let's focus on Russia and not looking at Anthony Weiner's laptop and stuff that relates to the Clinton investigation. And why is that important, Lou? Because the one text message that was so explosive in this report is the one where Peter Strzok says, "We'll stop President Trump from being president. We'll stop him." That to me is amazing. So that's the context, and understand that. So for Director Wray to say that there was this was free from bias, that is just not accurate. Mr. Horowitz himself said we do not have confidence that Strzok's decision was free from bias. In other words, that's like saying this guy had an agenda, and it's obvious to anyone who looks at this in the right way.
Do you think the Inspector General looked at any of this in the right way? Because I think that his conclusions are non sequiturs. I mean, he writes this report in much the same way James Comey announced the predicate for his conclusion in terms of prosecuting Hillary Clinton. It sounded like he was going to charge her and then suddenly said, no charges.
No, I think it's a thorough report, but I think he lets the facts speak for themselves. For example, this text message, "We'll stop it. We'll stop President Trump from being president." Remember when this comes. This is just 8 days after Peter Strzok has opened the Russia-Trump investigation. They opened it on July 31st. This "We'll stop it" text message happens on August 8th. And then just 6 days later, we have the text message that refers to the insurance policy. And then just a few weeks after that, we have POTUS wants to know everything. President Obama wants to know everything we're doing. So when you look at that in context, this is scary stuff. And this is why it's important that we do get Peter Strzok in for a deposition, why we do get Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray under oath in front of our committees in just a few weeks. That's why that kind of thing is important.
Here's why I think that we've got a problem. And that is that we can't rely on Congress for investigations. It's been demonstrated since Benghazi and Fast and Furious. Secondly, we have an Inspector General who is drawing conclusions that frankly, it's moronic what he does, or immensely duplicitous and deceitful what he does. You choose. Because this is, I mean, his conclusions do not comport in any way to a causal relationship that is laid out, as you say clearly in the report. The misconduct of 5 FBI agents and the injection of their personal politics. They're using devices, their personal telephones in the clear, insecure phones to carry out government business, classified business, top secret business in point of fact. They were doing exactly what their so-called mid-year investigation, they didn't have the guts to call it what it was. It was the Hillary Clinton email investigation. They would then drop that and use the subterfuge mid-year, being cute and quaint. It's not funny to me. It is disgusting and appalling.
No, and I think one of the big takeaways, Lou, is the exact same people who ran the Clinton investigation, who had a bias in favor of Clinton, who did all these things that are not the typical practice when you're doing an investigation, those same people took over and ran the Russian investigation. And we learned of a new person in the report, FBI lawyer number 2. So remember, you had Strzok and Page, who ran the Clinton investigation, ran the Russian Trump investigation, and were put on Mueller's team. We now also find out from this report that FBI lawyer number 2 was part of the Clinton investigation, was the primary lawyer, Mr. Horowitz's words, on the Trump-Russia investigation at the FBI, and then was also put on Mueller's team. I find that I want to know who this lawyer is. I want to know who FBI lawyer number 2, I want to know who that individual is. We need that person to come in and be deposed as well. So that's one more person who was Clinton investigation, Trump investigation, on Mueller's team, subsequently removed from Mueller's team because of the bias that they had.
3 top attorneys within the FBI on the same train with the 3 same stops and ultimately ending up on Mueller's team. It is so clearly an anti-Trump bias it is so clearly a Hillary Clinton bias in support of her candidacy. We're not talking about abstractions here. We're not talking about philosophy. We're talking about, if we've got this, I would love to have these comments on bias. If we got that number 7 ready to go, folks in the control room, I'm speaking to you, please. I could not hear your answer. Okay, we don't have it. I'll read it.
Lou, okay,
Dobbs, this is Lisa Page speaking. On March 3rd, 2016, God, Trump is a loathsome human.
Yeah.
March 3rd, 2016, in that conversation. Strzok, oh my God, Trump's an idiot. March 3rd, in that conversation, he's awful. August 15, again, 2016, Strzok, I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40.
Right.
I mean, this is, and this man, Horowitz, and everybody wants to treat him with kid gloves, cannot find bias that was acted upon out of a political motive amongst those 5. Yeah. My God, Congressman, what are we to do next?
But Lou, remember this as well. The most explosive text message was the one we didn't get to see until today.
Right.
The one that says, we'll stop it. Now, think about this. The Attorney General said there's like 50-some thousand text messages between Strzok and Page, whatever number it is, some huge number. Right. We've got to see all those ones you just read. We've seen those before. The insurance policy, Trump should lose $100 million to zero, all the bias that they have. But the one that's the most explosive, they hide from us until today. Now, why is that? Why didn't we have this beforehand? That's another question I have for Mr. Rosenstein. Why didn't we see this earlier, like all those text messages you just read? The most explosive one that comes 8 days after Peter Strzok opened a counterintelligence investigation into the President of the United States. Think about that. And 6 days before the insurance policy text message. So that's the sequence, and I think that's important and certainly worthy of some questions for Mr. Rosenstein in a few weeks when he's in front of our committee.
I think it's worthy of a number of other things, too.
Yeah, maybe.
And one of them is the President of the United States now interceding and ordering absolute transparency from Rod Rosenstein is leading a deep state cover-up. It is a partisan witch hunt. He is attacking a sitting president of the United States. The political motivation of the FBI and the Justice Department are absolutely conclusive, and I don't give a damn what this Inspector General, so-called, wants to call this report. It is nothing more than a cover-up.
Ron DeSantis, Mark Meadows, and I sent a letter to the president 3 weeks ago asking the president to do just that. Give Congress the information we're entitled to get as a separate and equal branch of government to get answers for you, everyone else in the press, and most importantly, the American people. I hope the president does that. Declassify stuff, get us the information so we can get all the answers. We don't have to wait for the FBI when they decide to show us the "we'll stop it" text message. Give us all the information we're entitled to get. I'm all for that, and that's why we sent the letter a few weeks ago.
Well, not to break the flow with this report and with the deep state cover-up and the assault on a sitting president, but I want to ask you about another assault on this president emanating from the Speaker's office of the House of Representatives. How long are you all going to put up with this rhino who is leading your party and this country into the abyss? How dare this phony sit there and treat the American people this way and destroy the party, but without comment from the conference? Yeah, I mean, Lou, other than Matt Gaetz, who has stood up.
Lou, I've said on your show, I've said on other shows, if and when there's a race for Speaker, I plan on being part of that discussion. What I'm most focused on right now is getting to the bottom, getting answers for the American people on the Clinton investigation, and more importantly on the Trump-Russia investigation, and also doing what we told the American people we were going to do on immigration policy, on welfare reform, on tax policy, all those things we campaigned on. That's what I'm focused on doing. If we do that, then we'll have a race for Speaker at some time because we'll still be in the majority.
Well, your good colleague and head of the Freedom Caucus now, Mark Meadows, showed everybody how to get this done, and that's with a motion to vacate the chair. Any one of you can stand up and do that at any time and see if he's got 218 votes. I'll make you a bet right now that he doesn't even come close. And more to the point, it's a matter of principle and preserving the party and acting in the national interest. I hope you'll consider it, Congressman, because I think you'd do a hell of a job.
No, thank you, Lou.
Congressman Jim Jordan, thanks for being with us.
You bet.
Up next, Rhino Ryan says he can kowtow to his masters, and he's polished up a brand new amnesty bill for illegal immigrants. It will spell absolute disaster for the Republicans in the midterms, and Ed Rollins, the dean himself, here next to take that up. Stay with us. The always clever and cute Rhino Paul Ryan is making a move for a presidential bid. He seems to be only interested in his own political fortunes, and he's undercutting President Trump at every turn. And now with what's heralded as the biggest amnesty deal in American history, a leaked draft of the Ryan disastrous legislation. Yeah, it's the Ryan legislation. By the way, nobody was involved in this thing other than a few hand-picked members of the leadership under Ryan. There's no participation for the rank and file, even though this phony tried to claim and act as though it did have broad popular support from the rank and file. It includes, are you ready? Amnesty for 3.5 million DACA recipients. By the way, there's no actual numerical quantification in the legislation. It fails to fully fund the president's border wall first. It doesn't end chain migration. It only sets quote-unquote limits that are, well, only generally and ambiguously described. So here you go again, another Ryan special. And that Ryan special will be served up to destroy the Republican Party in the midterms. I said last night on this broadcast, the Republicans stand to lose 50 seats if they put up with Ryan much longer. A massive bust of the deadly drug fentanyl seized in Ohio's Miami Valley this week. The state attorney general there said 20 pounds of the drug is enough to kill an estimated 4 million people. 4 men, all of them from Mexico, were arrested on smuggling charges. So, Mr. Ryan, I'd like you to leave the border open because, you know, there are a lot of Americans you apparently think deserve to die, to meet addiction, and to have their lives destroyed. So you just keep telling us how you're a big, bad, open borders guy. According to the Border Patrol, they seized nearly 6,000 pounds of narcotics on a typical day throughout the year of 2017. And yet Speaker Ryan and his donor masters are perfectly content to allow millions of Americans to die as collateral damage in their pursuit of open borders and amnesty for illegal immigrants. The hell with the American people. Joining us now, the smartest political strategist in the country, Ed Rollins, former Reagan White House political director, Great America.
Thank you, sir. How are you?
I got to be honest with you. I'm so disgusted with the Justice Department and everyone associated with their leadership. I mean, I could just absolutely puke if you want to know the truth.
You know, the president promised he was going to drain the swamp when he ran, and the swamp just keeps getting bigger. And you just see this. This is the epitome of it. Ray, the new FBI director for Coleman. You know, how can he basically be investigating accurately?
Did you hear that smug, self-righteous, pretentious little...
They how to investigate Hillary, who clearly violated the law by basically going off of official government, taking government documents and putting it on.
So I've got an answer for that.
When they were all doing the same thing.
Yeah, they were all doing the same thing. They were conducting government business on private phones, doing exactly what she did without regard for what was classified, for what was confidential, sensitive information, or top secret. And Comey did the same.
Absolutely, including grand jury testimony that he basically sent on his document, all of which are against the law.
What did you say about the grand jury?
Apparently there's some grand jury document that he sent for preparation somewhere.
Yeah, by the way, and none of the witnesses in the Clinton email investigation, or as they use the the quaint term, the midterm investigation rather than the Clinton email scandal, they didn't take any one of them before a grand jury.
The bottom line, inspector generals, every agency has one, appointed by Obama. It's about, are you overcharging somewhere? Are you basically spending too much for lunch? Are you living up to the budget? It's not meant to investigate something like this. So there's this big hype. And they put aside the Hillary thing, which is the important thing. And they basically, the evidence that came out of this is they all basically thought Hillary was going to win early on. And those that didn't think Hillary was going to win, they were going to do everything they could to stop it.
Though, Ed, if I may say, They were working to make sure she won.
Absolutely, no question about that.
They were political activists and organizers of an effort within the FBI at the highest level, engaged in straightforwardly, engaged, as Congressman Jordan put it, engaged in the Clinton email scandal, engaged in the Russia investigation, even they knew as pure balderdash,
right.
And also, of course, going to three top agents go subtly to the Mueller special counsel. What should this do to the special counsel? It should end the daggum thing right now. This is just ridiculous.
I've said from the beginning, and I had great respect for Sessions when he was a senator. He needs to be fired. A new attorney general needs to be appointed. Rosenstein needs to be thrown out also. They need to go fix that agency because the president's going to be attacked on legal fronts for the rest of his presidency. And he needs his own people there and needs his own man there.
This president is achieving. And what in the world? Paul Ryan is obviously working against this president every day that he is in that speaker's office, working against the Republican Party, and he is willing to throw away the majority in the House to subvert this president and secure his potential path to running at some point for president. It's that straightforward.
That's exactly right. He didn't want to be tainted by anything that's part of the Trump agenda and what have you.
He didn't want to be tainted. That precious little darling. He should smear that stuff all over him. Well, because I got to tell you, at least it'd kill his stench, which is that of a politically corrupt and just absolutely committed political force against the American middle class and working men and women. But
even to be playing at this late date on an immigration bill in which no one's going to see the bill before they stick it up there and vote on it, it's just outrageous. It's just the whole thing is outrageous.
Yeah, well, your party.
It's my party. I'm not happy with it.
No, I'm not either.
They're not happy with me either, but that's okay.
And Rollins, it's not okay. We've got to get it fixed.
Thank you.
Be sure to vote in our poll tonight. Do you think the IG report's claim there was no bias at the DOJ is a somewhat obvious cover-up of a deep state plot to undermine and destroy the Trump presidency? We'd like to hear from you on that. Cast your vote on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Follow me on Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like me on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. Do you think anyone in this country still has the capacity to get upset and actually pick up a phone or text their congressmen and their senators and tell them, what the hell are you people doing? Up next, New York's Attorney General conducting a partisan hit job on the president's personal foundation. We'll take that up and the fallout from the Inspector General's report. Fox legal analyst Greg Jarrett joins me here next. We're coming right back. President Trump's personal foundation under attack by New York State's partisan Attorney General, acting AG Barbara Underwood, filing a lawsuit today, I suppose being cute about it being the president's birthday, entered into her thinking as well, accusing him of using the Donald J. Trump Foundation to benefit his personal, political, and business interests. The president fired back earlier today on Twitter. The sleazy New York Democrats and their now disgraced and run out of town AG Eric Snyderman are doing everything they can to sue me on a foundation that took in $18,800,000 and gave out to charity more money than it took in, $19,200,000. I won't settle this case. Joining us tonight, Fox Business legal analyst Greg Jarrett, author of the new book, The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump, now available for pre-order everywhere. And by the way, you saw the Inspector General's report before you wrote that subtitle.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That's amazing, because that's what this document is. It lays out exactly that.
What should have been in the Inspector General's report is in my book, and it's the argument about how Hillary Clinton clearly broke the law.
They have to pay for your book, not the Inspector General's report.
I notice you're a little animated on this subject today.
I'm a little animated when I see this country going straight to hell. Up with a corrupt Department of Justice, a corrupt Attorney General, a Deputy Attorney General, at least five corrupt FBI agents at the very top of the organization. This is disgusting. It's appalling. And you have the political leadership in Congress and the Senate. It should be a bipartisan issue, and instead It's left to the scurrilous establishment rhinos to keep their mouths shut and not even say a word, even though this report makes it clear that this was a politically motivated attack on the president and in support of Hillary Clinton.
Well, the key line in describing what Peter Strzok did is from the Inspector General. Mm-hmm. It is not only indicative of biased state of mind, but more seriously, a willingness to take official action to impact the presidential candidacy of President.
So how the hell does this Inspector General conclude there's no bias that's actionable?
It's frustrating. He finds rampant bias. It's 568 pages of bias, and yet he concludes, well, I don't find any documentary or testimonial evidence that bias actually influenced the decision.
Look at page 395. Look at page 423. I mean, I can help him out.
Yeah.
He wrote the daggone report.
Well, I agree with you entirely. Americans are smart, and they know what went on here.
Why the hell should smart Americans have to put up with stupid, corrupt government? This is ridiculous.
Well, that's redundant, corrupt government. And well, sad to say.
It shouldn't be. Because
I know.
Because we're talking about the federal government. It should be the gold standard. President Trump ran against stupid government. He should have been running, against stupid, corrupt government throughout. Because this is really appalling. And this is putting in jeopardy a historic president and his administration who are actually solving problems and doing much to advance the national interest instead of just play the usual sickening establishment games on Capitol Hill.
Well, I will say that this report leaves James Comey in tatters, his reputation, his integrity. He clearly, according to the report, usurped power, exceeded his authority. Could you hear the soft patter
of his hands applauding the Inspector General for this report?
Well, he's just happy he didn't get a criminal referral. But you're not out of the woods yet, Mr. Comey. There's more coming. The Inspector General has 2 more stages of his report that focus directly on you, Mr. Comey. Your use of a phony dossier to gain a FISA warrant and leaking of your stolen government documents, including classified documents. So if Comey's popping the champagne cork tonight, it's premature.
If anybody is depending on Michael Horowitz and the Inspector General's office for justice in the Justice Department and the FBI, it's going to be a hell of a long wait. Because if this report demonstrates anything, in my judgment, Greg, it is that they are exactly what Chris Farrell said they are. The Inspector General's office is where truth goes to die, and that's a damn shame. But the reality is it's now up to the president to bring Trump justice to bear, and that means clean this place out, absolute transparency, and roll up these corrupt figures and do it now before they become too powerful for even the president. We used to say that we were concerned about an imperial presidency, too much power. But the truth is we have a Congress that is now inconsequential. We have a president who's basically impotent against these forces. They become the deep state, political forces unto themselves. And this president is being intimidated by that very force that is trying to carry out a coup against his administration. It's got to stop. It can only stop, I think, with a man with his historic standing and his guts and brains to contend with them.
There's no justice in the Department of Justice anymore. And I agree with Ed Rollins. It's time to clean house. Get rid of Sessions, get rid of Rosenstein, get rid of them all.
Greg Jarrett, thanks for being here.
Paul Ryan's on line 2 there for you.
It must be for you. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Up next, the Inspector General's report claims the FBI showed no bias. Imagine that. We talked with Congressman Matt Gaetz, who's been the only one with the guts to stand up and say what he meant about the flawed, corrupt Speaker of the House of Representatives. He's next. Stay with us. Joining us tonight, Congressman Matt Gaetz. He serves on a number of key committees, including Judiciary, Budget, and Armed Services. Congressman, great to see you. I can't wait to hear what you think of this 586 pages of report from the Inspector General?
Well, obviously, Lou, the information about Hillary Clinton is damning, and it is frustrating, and it is true. But the bombshell in this report is Chapter 12 that highlights the fact that the Mueller investigation is built on a rotten premise. Peter Strzok, just 9 days after opening the investigation on George Papadopoulos, was out there saying that he could stop Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States. And you know what else, Lou? We have a new character that enters this story, attorney number 2. This was the lead attorney from the FBI assigned to Robert Mueller. Right. And now we see circumstances where he's saying viva la resistance, you know, aligning himself with the resistance against the Trump administration while working for Robert Mueller. We got to disband the Mueller probe. Corrupt from the beginning.
You know, I think you make a terrific point. This report, just the facts, forget there isn't even an attempt at logical conclusion based on the evidence, because otherwise there would be people being marched forward to grand juries, because this is contemptible, absolute corrupt conduct on the part of the FBI and the Justice Department as well, I think. To sit there and say that five attorneys, 3 of them known, 2 not, were involved here, it's just straightforward. They were working for Hillary Clinton. They were working as political activists. They were doing what she did, that is, have public, in the clear conversations of government business being conducted on their private cell phones, in contravention of every requirement of the FBI, and this Inspector General wants to give them a little slap on the wrist and say, don't do that. And I think we need to change our procedures and our rules and do some really good training. And Christopher Wray calls a press conference to announce he's going to tell the rank and file how to conduct themselves when it's their damn leadership that's corrupt and absolutely in violation of the regulations.
Lou, foreign actors hacked into this information that was classified, that was being illegally maintained by Hillary Clinton, so that she wouldn't have to produce documents because she wanted to run for president while hiding information from the American people. So you had Americans put at risk because of this activity. And what? We're going to go update the HR manual. We're going to update our guidelines and procedures. You know, this is the same FBI and Department of Justice that for a year has refused to produce the information about how this entire Trump-Russia narrative began in the first place, but yet they're willing to gloss over the real danger to national security that Hillary Clinton caused. This was bias in favor of Hillary against Donald Trump. And the real question, Lou, is what are we going to do about it in Congress? Are we just going to watch? Are we just going to criticize from the sidelines? Or are we going to step up, demand the documents, and then start impeaching the people who broke the law?
Congressman Jordan making it clear that's the path, the latter path is the one that he would like to take. In your way, it's looming as a very large obstacle, is a lame duck rhino speaker who is sending your party to hell with this amnesty legislation that no one has seen. There has been no regular order. There has been no debate. You're being handed this and you're going to be told, be good boys and girls and do exactly what the speaker says, which will destroy the Republican Party's base and by the way, cost you at least, I think, 50 seats in the midterms. What do you think?
Well, I have not read the leadership proposed immigration legislation, but I do know that every time Republicans trade amnesty today for border security tomorrow, we never really get to the border security part. And the American people, they know that game. They know it's a bait and switch game like you'd see at a bad used car lot. And here we deserve to do better. Immigration was one of the key issues of Donald Trump's campaign and of his agenda. And we need to deliver for this president by giving him something akin to the Goodlatte bill that ends change migration, that imposes E-Verify, that cracks down on sanctuary cities. If we're doing something less than that, then we're not fulfilling the promises that we made to people when we asked them to trust us with this government.
Can you imagine, though, what Paul Ryan said to Tom Donahue at the Chamber, to Jamie Dimon at the Business Roundtable, to Charles and David Koch, the Koch brothers? I mean, he gave, he made some heartfelt promises to them for all that he's been promised. He's been bought. He is sold out, and there is no contract with America. It's just with American business, American banks, and, of course, Wall Street and the Koch brothers. And as long as he's in that office, Congressman, you know you don't have a chance, right?
Well, I'm going to keep fighting, and I want to know where the Republican Party is on this issue. We need to be taking public votes to put people on the board. Now, I don't know the people you mentioned, but I will say there are a lot of special interests in this town that simply want cheap labor. And when, you know, how criminal it would be for us to neuter the tax cuts by allowing so much illegal immigration that we depress wages. Okay. We promised people tax cuts and rising wages.
And, Congressman, there is no doubt about it. The American people will not be satisfied with anything other than the construction of that wall as a condition preceding to amnesty of any kind, if amnesty at all. Congressman Matt Gaetz, thanks for being with us. Always great to hear you. And again, I salute you. You're the only voice so far to stand up straight and say it exactly like it is about the speakership of one Paul Ryan. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lou.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders not backing down because of a bunch of abuse from an ignorant White House press corps, at least several members thereof. We've got the story, much more straight ahead. Stay with us. On Wall Street, stocks today closing mixed. The Dow down 26 points, the S&P up 7, the Nasdaq up 65. Volume on the big board, 3.5 billion shares. The president today approved tariffs on nearly $50 billion of Chinese goods. And a reminder, listen to my reports 3 times a day, coast to coast on the Salem Radio Network. Up next, the left-wing national media and its anti-Trump pundits hitting, well, a bizarre, ignorant low today. We'll take up their behavior. Joe Concha and Candace Owens join us here next. Stay with us. We'll be right back with those lovely folks. The left-wing national media unhinged in its attacks on President Trump and this administration in the White House briefing room. Listen to Sentinel newspaper's Brian Karem today screaming and berating Press Secretary Sarah Sanders.
Sarah, you're a parent. Don't you have any empathy for what these people are going through? They have less than you do.
Guys,
Sarah, come on,
settle down.
Seriously. These people have nothing.
Hey, Brian, I know you want to get some more TV time, but that's not what this is about. If I want to recognize you, go ahead, Jill.
Honestly, answer the question. It's a serious question. These people have nothing. They come to the border with nothing, and you throw children in cages. You're a parent. You're a parent of young children. Don't you have any empathy for what they go through?
Jill, go ahead.
Sarah Sanders, patient, classy, stoic, and I was really hoping that she would unload on him, I got to be honest. Joining us tonight, Joe Concha, media reporter, columnist for The Hill. Joe, great to have you with us. Candace Owens, communications director for Turning Point USA. Candace, great to have you with us. You know, as I watched her put up with first Acosta, who she said could barely understand short sentences, and this, at some point, I mean, she's going to boil over here at some point, and appropriately. So your thoughts on that conduct?
Well, you know, these aren't questions being asked, Lou, in search of answers. They're questions being asked in search of attention. And I couldn't agree more with Mike McCurry, who was the Clinton press secretary, Bill Clinton, and obviously Ari Fleischer under Bush. And they said, you know what? We need to take live TV cameras out of these press briefings because obviously these people are doing this to go viral and they want the attention, and they play into President Trump's argument, by the way, that this is not only a negative press but a hostile press as well. And then I would even go one step further. I would say the White House press corps only gets one day. They get Mondays. You put business reporters in there on Tuesdays so we have more questions about the economy, jobs, things that people care about. Wednesdays go to the foreign press, and that's it. 3 press briefings a week, 3 different press corps, and the press, and that would get us a lot more answers and information than the grandstanding that we're seeing.
All right, Candace, what do you think?
I absolutely agree with that strategy. You are absolutely correct that they are just doing this to be in the story. They want to pretend that they're standing up. They are hostile, they are bitter, and they are not helpful. And you want to know why they're unhinged? They're unhinged because at long last, the house of cards is falling, and they are a part of that house of cards. They are part of the group of people that tried to get Hillary Clinton in the office, and they are bitter and they are angry because their strategies didn't work, and because Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office today.
And I have to say to you, there's what I personally would like to see, give everybody their continued time and airtime as well. But if you're not mannered and respectful of the house you're in, that is the people's house, the White House, a briefing room, and treating the president's press secretary with respect, throw them the heck out. Get them out of there. There's no reason to put up with that nonsense. This, you know, at some point, networks will run out of White House press reporters if they continue to suck up the air the way those rather rude, ill-mannered louts have been behaving. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I think honestly that the first reporter that you played, by the way, from Sentinel, he's a reporter for Playboy. He's also a contributor at CNN. Obviously, Jim Acosta is with CNN. CNN management, you would think, would step in and